Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. In today's episode, I'm sharing the audio from my episode 1 recap of Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. So if you're watching Lady in the Lake, if you read the book, or if you just watched the series on Apple TV Plus, join me every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube for a detailed recap of everything happening in this series. Now, Apple TV Plus's Lady in the Lake is a drama thriller miniseries, and it's an adaptation of Laura Lippman's popular 2019 thriller novel of the same name. Now, this series is starring Natalie Portman in her first TV role, alongside Moses Ingram, Ilan Noel, and many others. In this series, you'll see what happens when a young girl goes missing in Baltimore on Thanksgiving Day, 1966. And we also see how the paths of two women cross in a really dramatic way. Now, in the series, we meet Maddie Schwartz, who's being played by Natalie Portman. She's a Jewish housewife trying to move past her old life and start fresh as an investigative journalist. We also meet Cleo Johnson, who's being played by Moses Ingram, who is a mother dealing with the politics of Black Baltimore while trying to support her family. Now, at first, their lives seem very separate, but when Maddie becomes obsessed with two mysterious deaths, we see things start to take a turn and endangers everyone around them. So again, in this episode, I'm sharing the audio from my recap of Apple TV Plus's Lady in the Lake that I do over on YouTube. I would love for you to join me every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time to recap the series until it comes to an end. And you can also stay tuned on YouTube for more book-to-screen adaptation recaps as well. But anyways, let's get into the episode where I do a recap of Lady in the Lake. Hi friends, hello, welcome to my recap of Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. Now, Lady in the Lake, in case you're not familiar, is an adaptation of Laura Lippman's novel. So Laura Lippman's novel is Lady in the Lake. Now, this one came out in 2019. I read it back then. I enjoyed it very much. And I was very interested when I heard they were doing an adaptation and that Natalie Portman would be starring in this one, especially because it's her first TV series adaptation. So, of course, that's always very interesting. Also, this has a jam-packed cast because we also have Moses Ingram as Cleo, and we also have Ilan Noel, and so many other peoples in there. So this one is really interesting. It starts off with a young girl who goes missing on Thanksgiving in 1966 Baltimore. And we see the paths of two women just converge in somewhat of a dramatic way. So whether you read the book or not, whether you're just watching the TV series, I hope you'll join me here for the recaps because I'll be recapping episode 1 today. I'll be doing episode 2 on Wednesday. And then every Monday, as they release the episodes, I'll be doing recaps. Yeah, I have some thoughts about episode 1 of Lady in the Lake. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with you all about it. So let me know in the comments, replay crew, live watchers, let me know if you watch Lady in the Lake. Let me know if you read the book. I have it all upside down. This is crazy. But yes, really excited to know if you read the book or if you watched the series or you did both. Either way, really excited to chat to you about it. Hello, friends. I'm Victoria, and welcome to Biblio Lifestyle. where we're reading and living better together. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you're the first to know what's new when I go live and when new videos are uploaded. Again, today's video is all about recapping Apple TV's adaptation of Lady in the Lake. Now, Lady in the Lake, here I go again with the book all upside down. But Lady in the Lake is an adaptation of the book by Laura Lippman. This book came out around 2019, I think. Don't quote me. But I read it back then. I enjoyed it. I love Laura Lippman. She's an author-by-author-read author for me. I will say I was going through a reading slump when her book Sunburn came out. And I've just been reading her books consistently ever since. I've read some books in the past. I revisited some backlists. But anyway, I was really excited when I heard Lady in the Lake was being adapted. It's on Apple TV, just in case you missed it. That's the cover of Lady in the Lake. Again, this is on Apple TV Plus, streaming. And I have to say, first episode, I have some thoughts. Now, first thing you should know, this is like a drama thriller miniseries. Like I said, it's an adaptation of Laura Lippman's book. It's starring Natalie Portman in her first TV role, alongside Moses Ingram, Ilan Noel, and so many others. Now, in this one, we see when a young girl goes missing in Baltimore on Thanksgiving in 1966, we see the paths of two women cross in a really dramatic way. Now, we have Maddie Schwartz. She's a Jewish housewife who's being played by Natalie Portman, trying to move past her old life, and she wants to start anew as this investigative journalist. Now, we also meet Cleo Johnson. Now, this is played by Moses Ingram, is a mother trying to support her family, raise her boys, but she's also dealing with the politics of Black Baltimore at the time. Now, it's very important to remember this is set in 1966. Some of the things are not really politically correct, morally correct, socially correct. But anyway, so we see their lives very separate. So we see Maddie and Cleo very separate. But then we see Maddie becoming obsessed with Cleo's mysterious death. We also see the death of someone else. And we just see how both their paths converge. So again, if you're just joining me, I am recapping Lady in the Lake, the Apple TV series. Okay, so let's get into the recap. First off, the episode's title is Did You Know Seahorses Are Fish? Which was very interesting. Now, the episode starts with this lake scene and this voiceover, which I thought was a really powerful start. Now, I wrote down the quote because I wanted to get the quote right. So the quote says, "They say, until the lion tells its story, the hunter will always be its hero." Now, I found that to be very interesting, very profound. So part of me is wondering, okay, they say, until the lion tells its story, the hunter will always be its hero. So I guess in this case, it's fair to assume Cleo is the lion because she is the person who is narrating. And Cleo goes on to also say, alive, I was Cleo Johnson, but in death, I became the Lady in the Lake. And we see this dramatic scene where this man is carrying this lifeless body into the lake, and a woman is overlooking newspaper clippings about said woman in the lake, which I think is just a great introduction to this screen adaptation, again, of Laura Lippman's Lady in the Lake. Now, this is set in Baltimore in 1966. And when we get away from that voiceover, it comes up on the screen, 1966, Baltimore, and this is set 1 month earlier. Now, there's a Thanksgiving Day parade, and we see this girl called Tessie Durst. I have her photo here. So this is little Tessie. We see her watching the parade, and then we see her family come along. Now, their family, they're Jewish, and we see her mom telling her that Santa isn't real, okay? And she's, how does Santa know that we're Jewish? And she mentions the reasons why. She's, what if I go to my friend's house, Mary, and he's, Santa will still know you're Jewish kind of vibes. And also reminding her that Hanukkah is coming up and that she can get whatever she wants when Hanukkah comes. And she makes it very clear, I know what I want a seahorse. And then we see her parents getting into it, having a conversation on the street. And she sneaks off and she goes into this kind of fish shop and she's looking around. And we see her interaction with a Black man pointing out this fish, right? And I found that very noteworthy. Now, later on, you'll realize that black man is actually Reggie. His name is Reggie. We'll see him later on. But he points out this thing, and this girl points out that, oh, did you know seahorses are fish? Hence the title. So we see that. And then it cuts. Now, then we see Maddie Schwartz. So we see Maddie Schwartz now in a meat market. She's purchasing meat. She's purchasing kosher lamb very specifically. And then we see some blood spill on her outfit. So when she realizes she has some blood on her outfit, she's, oh my gosh, I need a new outfit. So this is when we see her going into the city. That's when we see this scene that I'm sharing up here on screen, where she's looking into the department store mirror. So again, Maddie is Natalie Portman. We see her in this, I call this like a Jackie Kennedy outfit, except it's yellow. And we see her looking in through the department store window. And the woman, the black woman in the window is actually Cleo. Now, Cleo is a model at this department store. She's modeling this outfit. And we see Maddie saying, okay, she goes into the store and she wants that dress. So we see her speaking with the sales associates and saying they want the dress. One of the associates goes in the back, realizes that we don't have any more of these outfits. And she's, what about the one on the mannequin? So again, the outfit on the mannequin is being worn by Cleo. So of course, like the sales associates are losing their mind because they're like, you want the outfit from the woman on the mannequin, kind of really pointing out that she's a black woman. You still want to try this outfit that she was wearing? Oh, she's been in it all day. And just really just bringing, I guess they were trying to talk her out a bit, but it is clear that they're bringing up this woman's race. The fact that you want to try something on that she's been wearing is crazy. Now, again, this is 1966, and that's part of the reason why I'm going to probably be repeating this multiple times. It's set in 1966, so it's really lacking those present day sensibilities. Anyway, Maddie insists she wants the dress. So we see the store manager calling the model, Cleo. This is her in the dressing room, and told her to kind of change. So she does. She passes off the dress to Maddie, right? So Maddie gets a dress and she's wearing the dress. But we also see an interaction with Cleo. And it was, again, just another reminder, 1966, because they were really unkind to her, just very rushing her, pushing her, lots of like microaggressions in that moment. But again, 1966. While she's in the dressing room, she overhears that a child went missing. Now, see, this is the funny part. They were treating Cleo just really crazy. But then the woman who comes in and she's buying the dress, when she hears that, oh, hey, this little girl is missing, which, by the way, turns out to be that little girl from the opening of the show. She's, oh, I know this little girl. She lives in the same neighborhood. The sales associate immediately says, oh, you don't look Jewish. So they're saying that to Maddie, the lady in the yellow, basically to her face. It's very interesting, just, again, the dynamics. So we see a black woman being treated a certain kind of way. Again, 1966, I get it. But then also seeing their reaction to her when she says, oh, I live in this area. And they're like, hey, you don't look Jewish. But anyway, so at this moment, see her get her outfit and she's leaving. Now, in another scene, which I don't have an image for that one, we see a child who looks hurt. And we see a man dressed in a Santa Claus outfit with a fishbowl with a seahorse inside. So then, if you were never sure, now it's confirmed that Tessie, this is the girl who has disappeared. And this is a person who Maddie is going to be focused on. Maddie, aka Natalie Portman. So the stage is set. This is what this whole series is going to be about. Just in case you didn't read the book or anything, this is going to be a story about a dead black woman, but also a dead Jewish girl. So there are two people dead in this. And we see this one woman, Maddie, being very obsessed, finding out what is going on. Now, simultaneously, we are seeing both these women's stories being unfold, all right? So we see Cleo saying she has to leave, she has an event. We see that whole interaction with her boss and mentioning, we're going to have to dock your pay.
Now, she's running to this event, and it turns out to be a state senator's event. She's volunteering there because she's very involved in the politics at the time in Baltimore. And then we also see Maddie, who is also rushing to an event. Now, she is running to an event where they're celebrating some fundraising efforts that were being done for the Jewish Welfare Fund and the American Jewish Committee. So we see these two events playing out simultaneously. One woman at this Black Senators political gathering, and Maddie at the Jewish celebration for their fundraising. Moving on. Now, at the Senators event, we see that folks are not really happy about what's going on with the senator. Like, they're not happy about her policies, one of which is her push for school integration. And from the pushback that was being had at this event, you realize that there is so much more to the story. Then at the fundraising celebration where Maddie is at, we see the event being cut short because the city is sending out people to search for Tessie, which is the missing girl, this girl. Okay. So anyways, we see Maddie driving home with her son, which, by the way, let me see if I have a picture of her son. Yes. This son, Seth, is trash. Okay. Absolute trash. And all I'm going to say is, if he had Black parents, if he had Caribbean parents, I promise you, this boy would have some manners. But anyways, he's in the car with his mom and he's going off on his mom. And I'm like, you do realize that's your mom, right? But anyway, he's rude as hell. But again, I'm going to say 1966, although some of that probably would fly today with some parents, but not my parents. And it wouldn't fly with me. So we see Cleo, again, simultaneously, because we see two stories happening. So we see Cleo, she's not really happy with where she's at in her life. And it doesn't help that she doesn't get help from her partner, who is called Slappy. So that's Slappy. He's in the story. And this is a man who can't keep a job. He's not really helping her raising the children. And she comes home and it's Thanksgiving Day. Okay, it's Thanksgiving Day. And he didn't get the boys ready. Instead, he's hanging out with his friends. She is big mad. And we see her pack up her things. And she leaves him, like she really leaves him. Even he was shocked and he was like, "You're leaving me on Thanksgiving Day?" So that was crazy. But then we also see Maddie being talked down to by her husband. So she's being talked down to. So she's at home, she's preparing a meal. That same lamb that she went out of her way to get, kosher lamb, she's very specific about that. She went out of her way to get this lamb. And she's at home and she's preparing it. And I found it very interesting when she was buying said lamb. She was like, "Oh, lamb for 3." Then she's lamb for 5, just because she was like, odds are my husband is going to have someone over and not have the courtesy to tell me. I'm just letting y'all know right now. I don't really cook like that. But if I were cooking, or I do cook, I go to Publix, I call for takeout, I go fetch the food, I come home, I put it out in nice containers. Okay. That is my version of cooking. But anyway, if I brought home food for 4 and then I come home and then my husband just brings in 2 people and didn't tell me, so I didn't cook or get food for 6 people, best believe I'm like, "You're not eating, sir. You're not eating. I'll feed these people, but you're not eating because you should have told me." So you can see her frustration with her husband. But again, 1966. And some of these men clearly don't believe in women's rights or anything like that. So we see a scene when Maddie is home. She's with her husband. He's talking down to her. Even her son is talking down to her. And then their guest, who he had over, who he didn't have the courtesy to tell her about, but she bought extra food because she knows he might do that. We see her in the kitchen. She's preparing the meal. The husband is saying, "These dishes are dirty. Like, why are you doing this?" That he's really going off on her. And she loses it. She absolutely loses it. And in that moment, I just kept saying to myself, men are trash. But again, 1966, her husband takes the food and throws it in the trash bin. Right then and there, I was just like, no. And she loses it. She breaks some plates. She cuts herself. She goes in the bathroom and she's taking care of herself. Eventually, when the husband's guest leaves, He comes into her in the bathroom and he's, what is going on with you? What is going on? And she's just saying, why doesn't anyone care about this missing Jewish girl? Why doesn't anyone care? Why does she feel like she's the only one who cares? So he was saying, it's not that we don't care, but clearly you are more affected by this than anyone else. And he thinks it's really unreasonable. And they're going through the motions. And long story short, in that moment, she decides to leave her husband and her son behind. Snap, on the go. She just decides that, no, this is not for me. And she walks out and she leaves her husband. So again, you see the parallels with these two women. Let me get them back up on screen. So we see Maddie leave her husband. We see Cleo leave hers. Cleo drops off her children with her mom. We also see a little family dynamic there when she drops off the children at her mother's. But I have to mention that Maddie does not go home to her mom. I will get into what happened with Maddie. That's a whole other scene. But it was very interesting seeing both these women leaving. The difference is Maddie left her son at home, which I would if he were my son. Again, this boy, trash. But when you see his father and then how he was behaving in front of his wife, in front of company, it's one thing you're doing it at home, which, by the way, do not endorse, but with company, trash, absolute trash. But we see both these women, they want more from their lives. It is very obvious. And so we see that. Then we also see Cleo, which, by the way, Cleo is just stunning. I have this picture. Let me see if I can find it. Cleo is just absolutely stunning, in my opinion. She's just absolutely beautiful. Let me see if I can get my Cleo in. Yes, when Cleo is at work. Beautiful. I love this look on her, by the way. She had a different outfit when she was just showing up to work. I think this thing really limits how many stuff I can have in my deck, but just trust me, she's absolutely stunning. I love seeing her, which, by the way, this is nearing the end when we see her go to work. Now she works. Cleo works at this job. So at day, because remember, she was also the mannequin, the model in the department store window. That's her day job. Her night job is she works at this club called the Gordian. It's a nightclub run by this very dodgy Baltimore guy. Very dodgy. She does the books for him. So it's very interesting. She occupies multiple roles because, like I said, we had a different look. When Maddie gets there, she goes downstairs. She has her little keys. So it's clear Maddie does the books, but then Cleo also works at the bar. Sorry. Cleo. That is Cleo. Cleo's on screen. So Cleo has a day job. She has a night job. She really is working. And while there, so the gentleman that is in the background, he is Officer Platt. Now, it's very interesting. Let me see if I can get another, Officer Platt up there. So, we also see this stage. So we meet Officer Platt, who's the man to the right, and then we meet Reggie, the man to the left. Now, you remember me telling you the little Jewish girl goes into the store and she's looking at the fish, this little girl. The man who was telling her stuff about the fish was the man to the left, Reggie, who right now in this picture has a black eye. But then we also have Officer Platt here. Now, Officer Platt was chatting to Cleo. So we see the stage being set with these other characters. Now, like I said, Cleo works at this place where he's a very dodgy guy. We also get another scene about Maddie when she decides to leave her husband. So when Maddie decides to leave her husband, she goes to this jeweler. And by the way, this scene I actually thought was very powerful. I call it the two Maddies. I actually labeled it as such. And it's when we see these two versions of Maddie in the car. So to the right, we have present day Maddie, but to the left, we have a younger version Maddie, which we got a bit of that story when Maddie's husband, this is a scene. So Maddie's here in the kitchen, her husband's in the middle, her son's to the right, and the man who is visiting, Wallace, he's right there. And that's when she has this whole meltdown. He was telling a story about her being stood up in school and like trying to act like, oh, he saved her, like he went to the prom with her and all of that. So we see this scene of two versions of her. The girl in the left is the one in the prom, and we see her kind of having those flashback moments. Stick a pin in that. It's going to be relevant again. But I actually thought that was a very interesting scene. And this is a scene when she leaves her husband. Now, when she leaves her husband, she, like I said, does not go to her mom. She actually goes to this jeweler. He has this jewelry business. Let me see if I can, because this girl in that scene, we see her meet this girl. Her name is Judith. And when Maddie leaves her husband and she goes to the jeweler, it's because she knows the jeweler has this flat that he is renting and it's empty right now. So she shows up thinking she can pawn her ring for some money so she can pay him for the flat so she can have somewhere to stay. But he doesn't take her ring. You'll have to see that scene to see how it makes sense. But he insists that his daughter take her to see the apartment. Now, this is in a part of town where it's very clear Maddie has never been. And that was also a very interesting scene because to me, what that set the stage for is them two getting together. And Judith is so exciting. I loved seeing Judith because Judith is looking for a way to get out of her house. But back then, again, because this is 1966, her mom won't allow her to move out. To find a husband, great. But this girl does not want to, find a husband right now. She's very interested in, finding her own way. So she sees Maddie renting the place as an opportunity to maybe achieve that. So she even says, hey, I will sleep on the floor, if it means that, we can hang out, and I will bring a fold-up bed. I will do whatever it takes, because she sees her as this nice, uppity lady that if she says to her mom, oh, hey, I'm going to be roommates with this lady, then she was like, okay, she will allow me to go stay. So we see that interaction, and it is so obvious that Maddie doesn't want this girl around, which I'm like, actually, she can be very helpful. But it's very clear she doesn't want her around. But anyways, we then see the scene progress to her saying, I want to go join the search party. And obviously, back then, it was very easy for Judith to say to her, they're not going to let you join because you are a woman. And again, that was just another reminder of the times that this is not going to happen. It's not possible. So it's not a party if you're just going by yourself. So she decides to join her. And I found the picture because I wasn't going to stop until I showed you. So of course, here in front is Maddie. And then in the back there is Judith. So Judith is the daughter of the jeweler whose apartment she was trying to rent, but she was pawning her rings to get that. But he's, no, take your time. We'll circle back. Now, these two actually go out to search in the woods, by the way, and that's a whole other thing. But remember, this is like parallel storylines. So first we see her taking her to show the apartment, but then we also see the scenes with Cleo at the bar and her meeting Officer Platt. We also see a scene, which I have to tell you, it was incredibly heartbreaking. So earlier in the show, when Cleo was at the political event, because this is a political event, to her left is Dora. And Dora works at the club where Cleo works at night. So remember, Cleo does the books. She's also a bartender. Dora is a singer. And she has a voice on her. Let me tell you, she has a voice on her. And we see a really sad scene. We see Dora just really out of it, really out of it. Clearly, she took something, and whatever she took, way too much. And we see her friend Cleo really trying to help her to get her on her feet and get on the stage. We also see Cleo yelling at Reggie about what did they give her? They need to stop, kind of thing. But anyway, Cleo's trying her best to get her friend on the stage. She's completely out of it. I'm going to show you. Let me see real quick. This is Dora. This is when we eventually got Dora on stage. Beautiful, but really out of it. Whatever drug she took, way too much. And that moment is also just another, it's sad. It's a sad moment, but we also see Cleo going through a rough time at work. We see her boss really getting on her, basically telling her, you need to leave this political stuff alone, and I need you to focus on your work. And he really gives her a real talking to, like a real talking to. It was more of like a demand, just very demanding, very matter of fact, to say, stop volunteering for this political lady. Stop giving speeches, because this is where she was at the event. And the men were there basically pushing back at the senator. And I guess you could say not punishment, but really exerting his control over her. He had her go up on stage, had Cleo go up on stage to introduce Dora. And like I said, Dora was completely out of it. We see her singing this song. She's slurring her words through the set, but it's very clear that she can really sing. And during the song that she's singing, I forgot the name of the song, but during the song that she's singing, we see these two, Maddie and Judith, find the girl's body, Tessie, at the lake. Now that is another beautiful scene. Again, very heart-wrenching, because we're finding, the body of a dead girl at the lake. However, it had this voiceover that I thought was just very beautiful. We see Maddie breaking down. Judith is, oh my gosh. But I think the cinematography, that's the word, of that ending, where the camera kind of just zooms out, that was very interesting. So the voiceover, and I wrote this down because I thought it was very profound. Cleo. So again, Cleo is the person narrating here. And if we go back to the opening line, because that was also a voiceover, it says, they say, until the lion tells its story, the hunter will always be its hero. Now, at the end, Cleo is also saying, no one can tell you how to live your life. And Cleo is telling this to Maddie. Actually, I think this is a more appropriate picture. Cleo is basically saying to Maddie, no one can tell you how to live your life. You wanted Tessie's death to bring you that freedom, didn't you? But it only showed you the door. It took mine to open it. That freedom, it seems, will come at a cost. And I'm wondering, okay, that freedom, is that Cleo's death? Because to me, it's very clear, this is what's happening. We're going to have 2 deaths in this thing. We just had the Jewish girl. That's wrapped. Now we're going to have the Black woman. And the Black woman in this case is going to be Cleo. Yeah, this is a very interesting show. Again, this is like a drama, thriller miniseries. This novel is a thriller, Lady in the Lake. It's based on this novel. Very interesting. So I'm curious. 1, have you watched Lady in the Lake? Have you read the book Lady in the Lake? I'd love to know. I would rate this. How would I rate this? I think I would rate this 6 out of 10. Bookworms rate things out of 5. So I would probably rate this 3 stars out of 5. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because to me, it only has up to go from here. It only has up to go from here. The first episode for sure is character building. So we're getting to know these characters. We're getting to see where they are in their lives and the parallels of these 2 women. So we're seeing the parallels of these 2. We see both of them wanting more out of their life. Obviously, Cleo is a Black woman, and this is 1966 Baltimore, so she has a lot more on her shoulders. She is definitely not in a gilded cage by any means. She's a single mom for all intents and purposes, doing everything on her own. She has no help from her husband. Whereas Maddie is on the outside, seemingly happily married, 20-something years. She has a son who husband trash. On the outside, she has a beautiful home, lives in a really nice area for nice things. But these two women want more. And we see Maddie wanting to be a journalist because it came up that she worked on her school's newspaper when she was in school. We see Cleo wanting more. She doesn't want to be working at the club anymore. This is a conversation she has with her mom. She's hoping to get hired at her day job full time. So we see the parallels, one more privileged, one not so privileged, both being discriminated against, two very different women. But we also see them both leaving their husbands at the same time. So I think it's fair to say, and I read the book, so I have an idea. We'll see these two women's lives continue to parallel throughout the show. But I want to hear from you. Have you watched Lady in the Lake? Have you read the book Lady in the Lake? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. Also, how would you rate this episode? How would you rate episode 1? Would you give this 1 star, 2, 3, 4, 5? Let me know. Again, I would rate this one a 3. And I'm very excited to see what's happening in episode 2. So I hope you'll join me on Wednesday. I already have the live on the calendar. It's scheduled. So I'll be recapping episode 2 on Wednesday. New episodes on Apple TV Plus come out every Friday. So the episode comes out Friday, and then we'll come back here to reconvene because they dropped 2 episodes at the same time. So so let me know what you think in the comments below. Love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Also, let me know what other shows you'd like me to recap. That would also be very interesting as well. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, happy reading and happy watching. I hope you enjoy The Lady in the Lake.